Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka Willy Wanker, and this video we're breaking down the ending of 2021's Candyman. Candyman is a film that scared the crap out of me as a kid, and though I didn't appreciate the social commentary at the time, it's been something that I've constantly gone back to over the years. It's certainly a movie that has stood the test of time, and it's one of the standouts of the decade. In this video, we'll be going over the new film's plot and also giving our interpretation of it, and because of this, there will be heavy spoilers, eh? Now, if you enjoy the video, then please smash the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this each and every day. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Candyman. Okay, so Candyman is based on Clive Barker's short story, The Forbidden. Candyman spawned a massive franchise, and this has led to a new film by Nia DaCosta and Jordan Peele. A book by Barker actually appears at one point in the movie, and it's nice that they gave a nod to the source material, even if the story is pretty changed up from it. Now, how we got to this point is quite an interesting one, and just in case you need a quick catch up on the first film, I thought I'd give a rundown just to jog everyone's memories. Time codes will be linked below if you want to skip ahead, but I'll try and keep this short and sweet. Now, we began in Chicago with Helen Lyle, who learned about the Candyman legend when researching the Cabrini Green housing project. In the movie, we discovered that Candyman was born in the 1800s and he became a famous artist. He was hired by several wealthy white families, and he ended up falling in love with the daughter of one of these. After she fell pregnant, her father sent a mob after him, and they cut off his hand and poured honey over him in order to attract bees. They brutally stung his body, and in front of a crowd the mob set him alight. His ashes were then scattered across where Cabrini Green would be created. Helen discovered that if he said the name Candyman into a mirror 5 times, that his vengeful spirit would appear and murder you. Candyman's powers can very much be taken away depending on whether people talk about him or not, and this is a theme that plays heavily into the movie. Initially, he was thought to be a legend used to cope with the pain that had been inflicted on black people by whites, but Helen quickly discovered that there was more to it than that. After coming across a resident there named Anne Marie and her son Anthony, Candyman ended up framing Helen for the kidnapping of the latter, and she was locked up in an asylum. Helen managed to escape with Candyman's help, and she returned to Cabrini Green to save the child. Candyman told her that if she joined him, that he'd spare the child, but he backtracked on this deal and he attempted to kill the baby in a giant fire. Helen ended up sacrificing herself to save him, though she did end up becoming a similar sort of vengeful spirit, which sort of ties into this brand new movie. Now an adult Anthony becomes the protagonist of the piece, and when we join him, he's a struggling artist trying to get his name out there. Much in the same way that he wishes to gain notoriety of his name, Candyman wants the same thing, and slowly the two paths become aligned. After hearing of Helen's story, he takes a trip out to Cabrini Green, which is slowly going through the process of gentrification. Here he meets William Burke, who we learn is trying to start a new Candyman legend in order to get revenge on those that have caused his people so much pain. Now, I don't want to be a white English guy telling black Americans what a film like this is actually about, so I'm more than happy for people to correct me and say whether they had a different interpretation or not. In the film, we see Candyman more as a mantle instead of a single entity, and because of this, I took the metaphor very much to be a representation of generational pain. As Burke says, Candyman ain't a he, he's the whole damn hive, and we meet several versions of the character towards the end of the film. It turns out that Cabrini Green has been the site of several racially motivated crimes from white people against the black community, and this constant feeling of anguish has caused a literal tear in the fabric of the location so that several vengeful spirits exist there. Now again, this is very much how I took the film, but the spirits of the quote-unquote Candymen very much represent generational trauma. Often described by experts as being something that manifests within communities, we witness how the idea of pain is passed from generation to generation. The elders of the community all have their own Candyman stories, which they then tell the younger people about, who then end up seeing their own legends created before their eyes, which end up being inherited by the future as well. Generational trauma still has very little known about it, but research states that these stories can often lead to anxieties within a community that are further fueled by their experiences. There's a reason that some people get nervous when they see the police, and according to the studies, even if they haven't had a bad encounter with them before, it can still lead to a certain perception being formed. The website has carried out several studies, and it notes that the condition isn't just exclusive to the black community, and that it's also popped up in the children of sexual assault survivors and the grandchildren of those that experienced the Holocaust. I'm veering off into a lot of outward territory around the film, but it does explain why there's this idea of a Candyman that isn't just one person, but rather a collective. Throughout the movie, Anthony becomes obsessed with this, and after he returns to Cabrini Green, he's stung by a bee that slowly disfigures his arm. It's at this location that we discover that the character Sherman Fields became the latest version of the Candyman, and this idea of the torch being passed does become thematic in the film. Fields gave out candy to children, but when a white girl had one with a razor blade inside, the police ended up tracking him down and they murdered him. His face was beaten beyond recognition, and it's likely that a lot of the legends in the film actually pull from real life cases such as Emmett Till. Till was said to have flirted and whistled at a white woman, and a mob brutally murdered him. His face was so disfigured that he couldn't even be recognized, but his mother bravely held an open casket funeral so that the world could see what had happened to her son. Till never actually whistled at anyone, and similar to him, Fields was an innocent man. The movie very much puts across the idea that the police have a shoot first, ask questions later mentality, and it's clear that to some people, Candyman even seems like a protection. Their presence looms over the film quite a lot, and even in the opening scene, we see how they rule over Cabrini Green and are judge, jury and executioner. The film culminates with Anthony being wrongly killed by the police, and thus he becomes the next Candyman. Now we'll talk about this later on in the video, but throughout the film we watch as Anthony becomes more and more obsessed with the legend of the Candyman, and after his work around it becomes a murder site, the stories of how to summon the villain start to grow and grow. To me, the movie very much represents the anger of the oppressed who wish to find ways to fight back through using their voice. Candyman's arrival is very much summoned by saying his name, and in doing so you give the legend attention. This then brings light to the horrible crimes that were committed on those who ended up becoming the vengeful spirits, and it's important that they aren't overlooked because of what happened to them. We learn that Burke was the person who caused Fields to get caught, and after his sister was killed by summoning the spirit, he became obsessed with him too. Due to gentrification, white people have basically ousted all the black people that live in Cabrini, and Burke wants the misery that his community has faced through Candyman to affect them too. He wishes to start up a new legend with Anthony at the center of it, and he kidnaps him along with his girlfriend Brianna. Burke cuts off Anthony's arm, jams a hook into it, and calls the police, knowing that the murders will be pinned on him. Brianna manages to escape, and Burke catches up to her, but she fights back and stabs him to death. At this point Anthony arrives, but so do the police, and they end up shooting and killing him even though he wasn't posing a threat. Brianna is taken in by a policeman, and he threatens her and says that she has to tell people that Anthony attacked them and that they had to shoot him in self-defense. Instead, she summons Anthony, who arrives and kills all the police there, fully becoming a new legend that has just started his own myth. Anthony ends up catching up to the final police officer, and this is where he fully becomes a new iteration of Candyman, as we watch his face morph through all the iterations of those that were brutally murdered at the site. He chases after the final policeman and kills him, before his face morphs into the Tony Todd version of the character, aka Daniel. Daniel tells Brianna to tell everyone what's happened, and thus the legend will continue to grow and expand. Now that's the main ending for the film, though we do get some more of the shadow puppet sequences, which explain the stories that have come before and what will happen going forward. Throughout the movie we see several versions of the Candyman tale, and the first one tells the story of Daniel and how he was murdered. The second one told of a man that argued he was being ripped off, and because of this he was killed. The third was a story of a young boy who was given the electric chair after a girl said he assaulted her. This too is similar to Till, and we of course get Sherman Fields' story before we see Anthony joining them. The movie ends with the 5 legends all standing together as they're joined by several more shadows, invoking the idea of the voiceless victims uniting as one in order to wreak havoc on those that overlooked and didn't believe in them. Only the arrogant that disregard the legend of Candyman end up falling victim to him. I think it's a really smart idea to portray it in this way. It's such a good metaphor, and like most of the other critics, I really enjoyed the movie. I think if you view it on a surface level it might not really work as a straight up slasher, but there's a lot of important social commentary here that is definitely worth discussing. There are some standout moments, and it probably will be something that sticks with me for a long time. Peele has always been great at dressing up deeply layered films as horrors, and Nia DaCosta will definitely be a director to look out for in the future. She's currently working on the Marvels, and I'm very excited to see what comes from that. Now the cinematography here, atmosphere and performances really elevate it, I found it enjoyable, even if there were some bits here and there that I think could have been cut just to hurry things along. That being said, I did take a lot away from Candyman, and I hope you've had fun with the breakdown too. This was a movie I think you should definitely watch, and overall it gets an 8.5 out of 10. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, so make sure you comment below and let me know. We're running a competition right now and giving away 3 MCU box sets on the 30th of August, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the film. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, we've just done a big breakdown on the perfect scene in Spider-Man Homecoming, which I would be very happy if you went and watched. It's something that I've wanted to talk about for a while, and we sort of discussed the character points in it and also why it just explains why Spider-Man is Spider-Man. If not, then thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.